Door Kickers 2 has received a new update that has brought us some new maps, new weapons, a new system, and most notable of all, our very first silenced weapon. There's also been some changes behind the scenes, and if you've seen any of my other DK2 videos, you can probably guess what those changes deal with. Weapon stats. With the new silenced weapon being introduced, the devs have finally taken the first steps of tuning the sound radius of all the weapons. Well, tuning might not be the right word. They've just changed all the rifles and MGs to have a sound radius of 100 as opposed to their old values of 25. If you didn't guess already, it means enemies will be able to hear you fire from much further away. There's also one other big thing that this changes that you might not immediately think of. You know how when an enemy hears you fire, then they'll start executing hostages? Yeah, they're going to start doing that much sooner now. But let's get into it. Dealing with the weapons first, they've given us a whole new class of weaponry, SMGs. The MP5A is a beastly little room clearer. I was genuinely surprised with how effective this thing was at close range, especially with its lower damage, and looking at its stats, it's easy to see why. 45% critical chance at point blank. It falls off with range pretty quick, but my god if this thing isn't my new go-to breaching weapon. Something also worth noting is that the MP5A's sound radius is 50, half of its bigger counterparts, but still twice what the old default sound radius used to be. There's also a stat that's different than what we've seen with all of the other primary weapons. It's armor penetration. Lower than the other weapons' default of 5, the MP5A sports an AP potential of only 3. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that it's that high. SMGs are defined by the fact that they fire pistol rounds, but since they haven't tuned all the other weapons' armor penetration values, nor have they added any new armors, I'm really curious to see how it'll all end up. Until then, we can only speculate, but the devs have stated several times, in different words, that they want to make the game realistic or as close to it as they can get. So expect that armor penetration value of 3 to hurt a lot worse in the future. Jumping to the new rifles, they're all for the Grenadier, an MK18 and M16 variant in addition to the original M4. There's no real point in going over their stats since, just like the original M4 M203, they use the stats of their non-grenade launcher variants found in the Assault class, and I've already gone over their stats in my ammunition video. So if you're curious, check that out. But remember that all the rifles have had their sound radiuses increased to 100, so that's the only outdated part in that video. But now we get to what I really want to focus on, the new silenced weapon. The MP5 SD. This thing does less damage than the MP5A across the board, including having worse AP at max distance, being only 2, and having a worse critical chance at close range. But the big selling point is that this thing has a sound radius of only 2.5 meters. For my fellow Freedom Unit users, that's a little more than 8 feet. The only way anyone is hearing that gun fire is if they're in the room with you. And if they're in the room with you while that gun is firing, they're probably not going to be around much longer anyways. The critical chance is pretty disappointing though. And it's odd that it has a better end distance critical chance than the MP5A. I mean, what's that about? Anyways, let's look at the new system, Hold Fire, as it goes hand in hand with silenced weapons. It's pretty much the same as its counterpart in the original Door Kickers. Your soldiers that are told to hold fire will not fire unless fired upon or spotted, and when they have a target while holding fire, you can order them to fire with a simple hotkey. Soldiers with silenced weapons will be set to hold fire by default, but soldiers without silenced weapons won't, but can be ordered to. Something to consider about its usefulness without silenced weapons is when you would want to move your soldiers into position before unleashing hell, or when you want to get closer to a target that isn't looking at you with the same intentions. So it does have a use past being a silenced weapon function. We'll finish up with looking at the new maps. Just a really quick once over, I want to keep this short. I was pleasantly surprised with the new maps. They're really cool and really well detailed. And check this emplaced weapon out. I haven't seen anyone use it, but I really want to. Also, fuck this mission, it's really hard. Look at the complexity. Long ranges mixed with close quarters, it's actually better to bring a varied team. This is the military style maps I want to see. Every window, every angle not covered, every open door could be death, and there's so many of them. These are the maps I didn't know I wanted. Okay, I did say I wanted some of these fairly accurately, actually, but for them to turn out this well is awesome. I really hope that the bar that has been set for the quality of maps stays right where it is. This is awesome. Especially when or if they add in the ability to customize the mission's details, like enemy counts, change between hostage/VIP rescues, and terrorist hunts, all that stuff. And not for random maps like they already have, but for these particular maps. I know I've been critical of the maps because of their lack of viability for some of the classes, but with maps like these and a map editor, who the hell cares? This is great. You've seriously outdone yourselves. But hey, before I go, I just wanted to say that I hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas, and thanks for watching. Back to the usual outro, that wraps it up for this one. If you made it this far into the video, please remember to leave a like, and if you want to see content like this and more, subscribe to the channel. This is Mitchell Godsend. Merry Christmas.